Hey folks, welcome back to Challenged. Well, I've made a lot of progress on this 66 Belair to get the body back on it and a lot of the stuff hooked back up to it, but now it's time to finish the brakes. Previously, I made a video on how to upgrade the front with disc brakes using off-the-shelf parts rather than having to go buy a kit to do it. And if you want to see that, click on this link right up here, or it's down in the description. But today I want to get this converted because originally it came with a single pot master cylinder. So that single pot fed both the front and the rear brakes. And if one went out, they all went out. So safety wise, it's always a good thing to put in a dual pot master cylinder. So there's lots of companies that make stuff for it. One of my favorite is CPP, and I bought this from them. I think it was about 390 bucks. I saved the money on the front brakes so that I could spend a little more money and get a good unit from CPP. Comes with the dual diaphragm vacuum booster, of course the new master cylinder, as well as the proportioning valve. And the whole thing comes pre-assembled, which is really nice. The first step in doing this is to remove the single brake line that comes off of the original master cylinder. It's just not a big deal. And then disconnect the master cylinder itself from these two bolts. That'll take a 9/16 socket to do. This is the original rod that comes through the back of it. You do not need to remove this to take the master cylinder out. So just go ahead and get the master cylinder out of the way. Underneath here is a body plug that takes up this space. So we just pull this plug out and we're gonna open up that space. Next thing, let's take this rod out. Now we are looking underneath the dash. So this right here is the brake pedal. And right here, that is the rod that connects to the brake pedal that goes to the master cylinder. So we need to get this guy out. This is just a little clip right here. All you got to do is pop that out and then simultaneously push it up. Just like that, and it'll pop right out. Now, just push that out. Use your hand on the other side, pull that little pin, and then the rod comes right out. Next step, we actually have to make a little bit of a modification. So this plate right here comes with this CPP kit, and it fits on just like this. So you can see the bottom holes fit really nicely, but the top holes don't quite make it. And I'm gonna have to grind off a little bit right there so that this plate will work on that master cylinder setup. Now if we slide this right in place, and that's where it's going to go, it fits just perfectly. Now we're going to have to take a die grinder with a good carbide bit, and we're going to have to elongate these two holes towards the inside. Don't forget to cover the master cylinder and everything that is open so that you don't get chunks of metal stuck inside of it. Plus, stay away from anything else that the little chunks can fly into. Now these are opened up, I can stick this on and everything lines up the way that it's supposed to. So this will now fit onto that firewall. The next step actually is to pull this pin out of here, and then we're going to take this, slip it onto the firewall, and then put this on and bolt it all up. Before we can do that, there are actually two more nuts that you're going to have to remove right at the bottom. These two held the master cylinder on, and these two are just holding an inside bracket on. So remove these nuts, put your outer plate on. The tricky part here is you want to make sure that the part that engages with your brake pedal is oriented straight up and down. And as we pass this through, our brake pedal needs to go between these two, I guess you'd call them teeth. So two people might be handy with this, but let's just see if I can do it. All right. There we go. As we look inside, it looks like I got it in the right spot. We'll still have to adjust that, but I can cinch that whole thing down from the outside. One thing to keep in mind is these are much shorter threaded rods than what these are. So you're gonna have to basically tilt this thing down to get these upper nuts started. Once you get them on, then you can do your bottom nuts and everything should fit just fine. All right, we're back under the dash one more time, and one thing I want you to notice is there's two holes. That hole, this hole. This one was where the rod was. This one is where the rod is supposed to go whenever you have power brakes. So we want to make sure that we connect this to that hole. And notice it is too short. But this right here not doing what I wanted it to do. All right, I thought this sleeve right here was going to act like what a tie rod sleeve would be, to where you can twist it and the whole thing will lengthen or shrink. Turns out that is not the case here. So before you bolt that whole unit in place, you need to get this length correct. What a pain in the butt. Okay, it took 4 tries, but I finally got this thing where I wanted it to be, where everything is nice and centered up. So we want to take our pin, slide it through the hole like this, get it all the way through, and then just clip it up like that. The next step is to tighten this right here, this jam nut, to this, and then there's another jam nut right here towards the back. You need to tighten it to this. 2 9/16 inch wrenches, one to hold this, one to hold that, and then just a 9/16 on this one. Jam them up against there and they won't move. This thing is completely bolted up now. The inside is connected, so now we've got to move on to the plumbing. This is the original line right here that went from the original master cylinder down to this distribution block. And this distribution block would go to the back and then both front wheels. Well, I am going to use this, but we are plugging the back side because we want to separate the rear brakes from the front brakes. So the first step is to take this line off. I'm not getting rid of it. I'm actually going to use a portion of this. But also, we need to do a couple more things. This proportioning valve, it has 2 outlets in it, so that you can run both of those fronts if you wanted to, one to each of these. There's one right here on the bottom, and of course this one on the top. I need to take this out of the top, screw it into the bottom, because I am only going to use one of these, and of course it's way too close to my suspension here in order to well, use both or use this bottom one. Anyway, I'll get that put in place. The other thing is this proportioning valve right here on the back side. It's a 9/16, and that's not a standard size, so we have to adapt. And so I got an adapter that goes from 9/16 to 7/16, and I got this at O'Reilly. So it's BLF-25B. That is the part number for this that you're going to need to adapt to what would be a standard size. This kit does come with everything to bleed your master cylinder. Now, most of the time they tell you to do it on a bench. Of course, this thing was already hooked up, and honestly, I've had great success just mounting it and then bleeding it with it in place. So I got that plug moved down there. And I had originally put this adapter in, but the kit that came with this to bleed it, I couldn't use that adapter, so I'd take it back out. Now everything is hooked up. Got one going into the back and that one going into the front. Now I got to put fluid in here and we start pumping the pedal. I filled both chambers up, not quite to the top, but as you can see there are bubbles already coming out of it. It's because this is gravity feeding through these lines, which is kind of nice. But we want to speed that whole thing up. So I've got the wife in the car there, and she's going to press the pedal. The big thing to remember when pressing that pedal and bleeding this is you want to do it real slow in and then real slow out. You can see all that air as she's pushing the pedal in. And now she's going to start coming back out until she's all the way out. And then she's going to push real slow in. As this happens, and more of this air comes out of this system, this is going to be drawn down. So you may have to add some fluid to this. You just pump enough times until when you can pump and you see 0 bubbles anywhere coming out of this. And it'll take a little while, but it's way easier than bench bleeding. This whole thing is bled. The fluid that's coming through this line has no more bubbles in it. Everything looks good. Probably takes, I don't know, 50, 60, 75 pumps to get everything out, but I like to be thorough. Next, we're gonna move down to this distribution block right here. So this is the factory distribution block. As you can see, I put a plug in the back side of it. This plug I got from Summit. It's a 7/16 inverted flare male plug. You can probably get that from O'Reilly's or AutoZone, but screw that into the back of this. That will plug off this. Next, we've got to make a line that goes from here up to here. And since the front of this is disc brakes, we want to use 3/16 inch line. So I bought a kit from Amazon that came with the copper nickel tubing as well as a bunch of different ends for it. Now it's time to make our brake line, and actually I've already made the brake line and put it in. I lost the audio on that one, so I'm just going to do a demonstration of how to do it. This is 3/16 brake line, and that's what I need for disc brakes. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that the end that we are getting ready to flare is nice and round. If it's not, you're going to want to cut it off, and you're going to use a little tool like this. I'll leave links down in the description for the different tools that I'm using here, the exact ones actually. But if you need to cut off the end, this one is really good. Once it's done, you want to make sure that there are no burrs on the end of this. And then same deal with the inside of it. So generally what I'll do is I'll take just a pocket knife of some sort. I'll put it inside of here, and then I'll push with a slight angle, and I will knock those burrs off. We aren't trying to enlarge it. We aren't trying to change it in any way. We're just trying to knock the burrs off, which happens whenever you cut it with one of these. All right, that looks really good. So now before we move on, we want to slide our fitting in. This is a 3/8 inch fitting. I'm going to put it back over this. And then I'm going to slide this into our bench mounted flaring tool that I got from Summit Racing. This is one of the things that I spent pretty good money on. I kind of believe that good tools pay for themselves over time. Don't always go with the cheapest things. This makes it really easy. All right, I have my 3/16 inch die in place. I slid my tool inside. There's an OP1 that is on, or OP0, and that will get us to where the tubing is just right at the end of this die, and that's exactly what you want at this point. Tighten this little guy down. Make sure everything stays in place. Nice and tight. Now we go to the OP1, which is 3/16. That's our first die that we're going to use. We'll take our handle, and then we just push until it bottoms out. That's the first one. And it makes it really easy because then we just go on to OP2, which is for 3/16 and 1/4 inch. That gives us our double flare. Now we just take it out of our die, and we have a perfectly flared end on this. That sucker is awesome. And so that is one end, and obviously I put a fitting on first. You will forget this one time, so you'll have to cut this off and get to do it again. But that is perfect. Now you're going to want to bend this whole thing, and I got this off of the Jungle website. Get the tool in place like that, and then generally with two hands or wherever you want this bend to be, and this one's just for demonstration, you just kind of start bending that around. And obviously this is a relatively tight bend near the fitting, which is something that you can do, and that is a really clean, perfect bend. We did not kink any of it, and that's why we used the correct tools. The hardest part of this mess is actually going to be figuring out just how long this sucker needs to be. And of course, to make these flares, you need a certain amount of this to be nice and straight so it fits in the die. Anyway, it takes a little trial and error, but you end up getting it, and you got yourself a really nice looking brake line. I think it turned out really well. I used this original 1/4 inch piece for the back brakes. Again, the back brakes are going to be drums, the fronts are discs, so everything in the front is 3/16 inch line. The back is 1/4 inch line from this proportioning valve back to the rubber line, and then from the distribution block that connects to that rubber line, you do 3/16 either way. And of course, if you're running 4-wheel disc brakes, then you need 3/16 in the entire build. Don't forget to put your vacuum hose in place. This connects right to this right here, which goes into your vacuum booster, and then it's generally going to be off of your carburetor or your manifold or wherever you have a vacuum source. Make sure you get that put in place. The very last thing that we have to do is bleed the brakes. All we've done so far is bleed this master cylinder, so we still have to bleed each brake. And honestly, it's going to take quite a bit of fluid. So since all of my lines were empty, they all have to fill with this fluid. So when you do bleed your brakes, watch your level, make sure it doesn't get down too far. Keep adding to it. This is definitely going to be a 2-person job. Otherwise, this isn't that bad of a job. Is it a beginner job? No, not necessarily. You're going to be making brake lines. And with that said, this is the first set of brake lines I've ever made in my entire life. When you buy the right tools, the job just gets really, really easy. Don't always buy the cheapest tools that you've seen. Speaking of, I will put links down in the description of the tools that I have used, and I would recommend. I bought them with my own money. They aren't sponsored. If you found this helpful, if you wouldn't mind, hit that like button as well as subscribe to the channel. Making good progress on this. Need to just keep going at it. Thank you guys for watching. Stay challenged, my friends.